Hey YouTubers, how's everybody doing? I hope this video finds you well. Welcome back to the garage, where today we're going to be doing an oil service to my 2022 Ford Maverick. If you're new here, my name is JC. This is the Cuban Redneck DIY channel where we do cooking and grilling videos on Tuesdays and DIY stuff of all types on Fridays. If you're looking for something specific, please do me a favor. Click on the title of the channel where you will find a dedicated playlist to every topic that we cover. If you would have told me a decade ago that you would need a YouTube video to change the oil on your vehicle, I would say you are on crack. But nowadays, there's a lot of changes in place. In this particular vehicle, Ford has been in contact with BMW and Mercedes and companies like that, and put some covers in place and things like that that are throwing people for a spin. So I've seen some stuff on YouTube that I'm not fond of or kosher with. So I decided to do my own video. For starters, the vehicle only has 2,500 miles, but it does have 100 hours of operation. I have an issue with this concept of changing your oil per mileage. You can have an engine that runs 100 hours in 10 miles, and you can have an engine that runs 10,000 miles, on 10 hours. Really, the engine or the oil in the engine gets, how can I say, damaged or degraded by time of operation, not necessarily mileage. If you're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, obviously your motor is going to be a lot more affected, or your oil is going to be a lot more affected by that than is somebody who's driving X amount of miles on the highway. Now, if you look at this, you're probably seeing a lot more things that we need for an oil change. So I want to go over them. First of all, I chose to go with a Wix Oil Filter. In my opinion, this is one of the best in the market. There's plenty of videos out there of what is the best oil filter and stuff like that. And I know there's going to be people out there going to say, oh, move one. Before you jump on the bandwagon, I'm not saying that that's a bad product. I just think that it's an overpriced product for what it is. I have never personally, even cars that are sponsored by Mobil 1, I've never seen Mobil 1 be put on a race engine. That's number one. And number two, if you read the fine print on the efficiency and things of that nature, you will know that they are using their own grading system. So I find marketing companies with shady language like that very dishonest. I've never liked it. I have never found that their product is worth the money. I have a sweet spot for Castrol. Castrol, when I used to race, Castrol was a company that is extremely supportive of motorsports. So many times I've been, I did good on a weekend, but even if I didn't win, and the guys from Castrol will come by and either drop a box of oil or even a 5-gallon jar. The guy said, hey, I don't want to take that shit back. So this is an oil that I can testify. It has been tested in race engines in the worst or most demanding conditions there are, offshore powerboat racing and things of that nature. So along with this, for some apparent reason, I don't know why, the Ford Maverick, the 2.0 EcoBoost, has 5.5 quarts of oil. Obviously, I'm looking forward to adding an oil cooler so we can make it all 6 quarts. But the half quart thing, not 100% sure what the deal with it is. So you're going to need a 5-quart jar, and you're also going to need an extra quart. Please do not put the 6 quarts in there. You're going to overfill it. You can actually cause damage to the engine with hydrolocking. I'm also going to be adding, I'm going to start adding Prolong on this oil service. This is the first oil service that I do. Prolong is a friction inhibitor. It reduces friction, and it is one of the steps that I started taking. I'm probably going to cover this in another video because I want to get this guy up to 40 plus miles per gallon on the highway. I don't really care about city traffic. There's no traffic in Port Charlotte, and there is I really don't do that much of city driving anyway. Most of my stuff is on I-75. locked up on cruise control at 75 miles a gallon, 75 miles per hour. And that is, everything that I'm doing on this vehicle is towards that goal, and that's the reason that I purchased this vehicle, and the reason why I purchased the EcoBoost over the hybrid. There has been a lot of questions, and perhaps I need to do an FAQ on everything about my Maverick. So please, if you have any questions about my truck, feel free to put a comment below, and I will gather the top 10, top 12 questions and put them together in a video and try to answer those questions a little bit more complete. Along with the friction reducing, we're gonna use, I'm gonna start putting out, well, I'm gonna put in this Blue Devil. I have never used this product before. It is, I normally use something called Water Wetter. This products do is they enhance heat exchange for your coolant. All you do is you put it in your reservoir, and over time, after driving for a little bit, it will eventually mix into the system. It will reduce your operating temperature a hair. So they claim 25 degrees. I never measured that, but it does improve, and it is definitely something you want to have in your engine when you're driving long distance on the highway at 75 miles an hour. And also if you're going to be towing things, and I'm definitely going to be towing a boat with this sucker. What else? If you are not, every time that you change the oil on any new vehicle, I'm going to say probably 18 or 19 and up, they're no longer using O-rings. They're now using something called smash washers or impact washers. These things, once you remove your oil plug, these things they break. They no longer work. They once you squeeze them, once you back out the bolt, they no longer have any function, and you do need to replace them every time that you change the oil. And if you don't, number one, you may end up with a leak. Number two, I've actually, on the worst case scenario, your drain plug may back up. I am not going to deal with that because I like to maintain, I like to work on my vehicle. I like to have the most, assurance that the work that was done on the vehicle is of the highest standards. There's no higher critic than myself. There has been some comments about people say, oh no, I take it to the dealer because the dealer does great work. If you think the dealers do the best work, you ought to go on YouTube and research that, because it's not only Ford dealers, but Toyota dealers, Chevrolet dealers are the worst, in my opinion. And dealers really don't, not only are they expensive, you're paying a premium, but that doesn't mean you're getting a premium service. So just be warned on that. Doesn't mean that everybody's the same. I love the guys over at Charlotte, Port Charlotte Ford. Karen is awesome. John at Parts, whatever I need, he'll pull out. I query him all the time about parts. Hey, can I use this for malaria on my XL, and he's never had an issue with that. Because I am going to be changing and maintaining my own vehicle, I'm going to go ahead and put a quick quick drain valve. This is something I've had on every engine I've owned the last 20 plus 30 years since this company came about. This is a Fumoto. For this particular truck, it's an F137N. I'll put a link on the blog. For what I read, the drain plug should be a standard Ford, which is an M12 by 175. Sometimes you do need to get an extension for these things. I'm not 100% sure if we're going to need it or not. I guess we'll find out once we take it apart. I have never serviced this vehicle before. We're obviously going to need a funnel. We're going to need a 15 millimeter socket for removing the drain plug. Once we change this thing, we don't need any tools. It has a little clip that you move to one side, and it has a retainer, a safety retainer to keep it from draining. We're also going to need a T30, a Thor's tip. A T30, you don't have to have a power drill, but it helps. I believe there's like 15 or so bolts on the bottom of this thing. And you're going to need a piston pan. Something else that I'm going to be doing on this first oil change for the Ford Maverick is, although I appreciate the cover underneath the motor, and a lot of people don't understand why is that needed. Primarily over the last decade or so, almost every engine built out there is made out of aluminum. This is not like billet aluminum, this is cast aluminum. Unlike steel, aluminum doesn't like to be forged. In other words, doesn't like to be heat up and cool down. Heat up and cool down. It becomes brittle and can eventually crack. So be running, if you can think of you've been driving for an hour and all of a sudden starts raining and your motor gets wet. That rapid heat variations over time will weaken the aluminum block or aluminum parts, and eventually you end up with a failure. Obviously, there's enough failures, data on failures that they say, you know what, we're going to spend an extra $10 and put a cover underneath. However, I am not a fan of the porous, some kind of pressed fiberglass. I'm not sure what type it is, material that Ford is using on this particular vehicle. So I don't know where you guys are at. I can see this in the Northeast, like when it gets so muddy in the winter, the slush. I can see that getting stupidly filthy. Here in Florida, it's all we have to do is rain. But up in 75, we have a lot of things on the construction, and there's this white thing that gets underneath your vehicle. It feels like you drove through a construction site. I can see that panel getting really, really dirty and really nasty. So I am going to add some rubberize on the coating and protect it, make it more weather resistant to any kind of things like that. So I can just pressure clean it and go from there. All right, I think I covered all the bases. So let's get started. Before we proceed, I want to address a question I know is going to come up. That being, if so many, including Ford, recommend oil change intervals between 5 to 10,000 miles, why am I changing the oil at 2,500? The reality is that the oil looks like shit. It is dark, it smells like burnt oil mixed with gas, and although the viscosity is there, it doesn't feel very slippery. I also want to correct myself for an earlier statement about the drain plug washer. To my pleasant surprise, the Ford Maverick 2.0 EcoBoost has an O-ring on the drain plug. Kudos to Ford for doing that. Sorry Chevy guys, you still have to buy washers. To change the oil on your Ford Maverick, you will have to jack it off the floor high enough so that you can get under it. You're also going to need a cool engine. I am not going to get into all of that, but I hope that you use common sense safety measures and employ things like jack stands and anti-roll back wedges. We'll start by removing the 15 T30 Torx screws holding the bottom cover in place. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to apply undercoating to this panel. And if you're going to do the same, know that one can was barely enough. I will definitely be doing a second coat the next time I change the oil. The next step is to remove the filter. I strongly recommend using gloves. To be honest, I was not expecting the oil to be this bad. After cleaning the gasket area, install the new filter, tie it with your hand as much as you can, then give it a quarter turn with the tool. Next, we need to drain the oil from the crankcase. Place the oil drain pan where it's about 3/4 of its length past the drain plug location. Remove the drain plug and let it drain. Know that this is going to take a few minutes. I was extremely disappointed to find out that I needed an extension for my Fumoto drain valve. If you're adding a drain valve, please make sure to also order an ADP 137, which is an M12 by 175 half-inch extension. And by the way, I know about the 107SX, but I personally rather have the straight one. So since we can install the drain valve, I'm going to go ahead and put the OEM drain plug back in place. Before adding the oil, I will go ahead and add the Blue Devil Pour and Go engine cool to the coolant reservoir. Know that this is going to add about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch to the max line, but that is no big deal. I then proceeded to add the oil. I'm starting with a large 5-quart jar. followed by the prolong. We then need to start the engine for about 15 to 20 seconds to refill the oil filter, and then use the single cord to top it off. Note that if you don't start the engine, it will show that the engine is full, but it's really not. Guys, that is it. This took me about 20 minutes, but once I get the valve in place, this will barely take 10 minutes. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to reset your oil countdown on your dashboard. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week with a new video.